between the Neighborhood Preservation Committee concerning the CDBG budget year 51. With me, I have Councilor Hogan, Councilor Nave, Councilor Piniagua, Councilor, what's your name? Monto, and myself, Patrona Jones-Rouser. And I have the MBD team, Commissioner Collins.
And Deputy Commissioner
And
Skansky.
Deputy Commissioner Skansky. Okay, all right. So we called the meeting to just go over some of the items that are, funds are allocated for this year. With, I think a few people had some questions. I know Rashida has some questions. She's not here. I'm thinking she may message me with her questions. But if you just want to give a quick overview of the new, like any new people that applied this year and the percentages that are allocated to people.
Sure. Thanks, councilors. Good morning. Great to be here with you all today. So the sheet that you have in front of you just gives kind of a general overview of the federal block grants in general. So there's 3 federal grants that we're typically receiving due to our status as a federal entitlement community, which just means that we have a population above 50,000. So that's our community development block grant, which is the most flexible of the 3 funding sources, can be largely kind of targeted based on community priorities, so long as it meets kind of the definitions that are set by HUD, specifically with regards to meeting one of 3 national objectives. So it must principally benefit low to moderate income families, aid in the prevention of slums or blight, which is the technical kind of HUD language that is used, or otherwise meet an urgent community need. There's some provisions in terms of kind of specific programs, though it is flexible, there are limitations with regards to programs that meet the definition of public services. So no more than 15% of jurisdictions' annual allocation for CDBG can be used collectively for programs that are meeting that public service definition. And there's a 20% limitation on any kind of admin costs with it. The other 2 grants, emergency solutions, those are more very strictly targeted towards homelessness, street outreach, homelessness prevention, things of that nature. There's again kind of some provisions within that along the lines of how it gets set in coordination with the regional continuum of care, which is the Central New York Homeless and Housing Coalition. And then the Home Partnerships Program is the 3rd of the main grants that we receive annually from HUD, and those are targeted kind of strictly for the purposes of housing development and reconstruction, strictly to benefit those who are low to moderate income under 80% AMI. On an annual basis, the process kind of leading up to the time that we come before the council with the draft annual action plan, we are going through and kind of working in accordance. Everything kind of falls under a 5-year consolidated planning cycle. So this year is actually the first year of the 5-year fund plan. So it constitutes kind of a new draft 5-year plan. We go through the process to kind of develop that plan, and includes working with CNY Fair Housing to complete a comprehensive analysis of impediments to fair housing in the community. There's a bunch of additional kind of data analysis and reporting that we need to submit to HUD to kind of that outlines our housing and community needs, kind of what are the market conditions and things like that. And then there's components for kind of community engagement and how do we make sure basically kind of that the funding priorities that we have in alignment align with the goals that end up kind of getting included within the plan. So the goals that you see before you here kind of on the bottom of the page, really a lot of the things that you heard us speaking about at the budget hearing that we had last week with Neighborhood and Business Development, really focus on kind of quality, safe housing, preventing homelessness, economic opportunity, and strong neighborhoods. So they're called out a little bit more explicitly in terms of some of the different types of programs than maybe the 3 goals that you've heard in the past. That's really just for kind of ease of agencies understanding a little bit more about the types of programming that we meet under those categories, but largely they fall kind of in service of those 3 goals. So that's kind of an overview of the project, the process at large. Each year when we are getting ready to put out funding applications, we do kind of a call to all agencies that we have in our roster, also put the information out through the city's various channels, so social media, city website, local newspapers, announce the availability of the funding opportunity. We typically keep applications open for about 5 to 6 weeks, and we will kind of release what the calendar of the application timeline looks like. So with that, we'll include kind of dates for a scheduled webinar, technical assistance for any agencies that are applying, opportunities for one-on-one technical assistance with our staff for any agencies that might have questions on the application. At the point that we receive applications from all agencies, then agencies are, our team internally will review and conduct kind of a fiscal review, make sure that the agency, from a fiscal standpoint, doesn't have any kind of red flags in terms of audit findings or things like that. Or any other criteria that would kind of deem them ineligible, such as kind of not being a 501c3, things like that. And then we also have an RFP committee review process. So there's RFP committees that review every single application that comes in, comprised of a combination of folks from different foundations that are reviewing funding applications on an ongoing basis for their respective roles, other experts within kind of the housing community development field, neighborhood residents, and business owners. So includes representation from the council. So Councilor Jones-Rouser was a participant on those as well. And Council President Hudson, although she was not able to join us for this session because of the timeline of when we were doing it. But typically, we'll have committees review all the applications. They will make recommendations and kind of cite any concerns that they might be seeing from their respective vantage point, either in terms of kind of agency performance and also just, of course, on the merits of the application and the program itself. So the role of that group is really kind of advisory. They tend to kind of give us a thumbs up, thumbs down recommendation of should this program be included for funding. They're not necessarily getting any prescriptive in terms of they should be funded at exactly this amount. So those are all determinations that are made by staff when they're coming before you. What we did with for this year, particularly for the CDBG budget, there was several new applications for programming that we received this year, and based on the committee review, the committee had recommended that we look to try to fund all of those programs. Ultimately, as it kind of came down to it based on anticipated amount that we were likely to receive this year, and again, this is our draft budget, so at this point I have not received our actual allocation for this upcoming funding year, so we're just estimating it, assuming that we match the same level that we received last year. But the way that we were able to kind of make this work with keeping in mind kind of the public service provisions and also the fact that I think the feedback really from the RFP committee collectively was that the funding applications that we received were all strong applications. There had sufficient community need, and that we felt that it would be advantageous kind of from the community standpoint for us to look to try to get all of those funded. Understanding public service cap provisions, it meant that basically we had to take between a 6% to a 15% kind of across the board cut for all agency programs to make that work. So programs that were either considered by HUD to be housing programs or were being managed by agencies that meet the definition of community-based organizations, CBDOs. It's a technical HUD designation that allows those programs that those agencies are doing to not be subject to the public service cap. So agencies that includes were the community centers, 3 community centers, Southwest, Northeast, and Westcott this year was newly qualified as a CBDO, as well as NEDA, Home Headquarters, and Jubilee Homes. Those programs all had about a 6% reduction from the prior year, evenly across the board, and then programs that do not meet the qualification for CBDOs had about a 15% reduction from their prior year amount.
Okay, and you said that the reduction in the prices were based on the ability for us to fund the new, okay.
Correct, yeah, and you had asked also too earlier for what specifically some of those new programs were. So for this year, those included Peace Inc.'s Barriers to Weatherization program. So it's covering specific direct costs that are not covered through other HUD sources that they get specific to energy replacement programs. So it's a really complementary kind of leverage program that is not subject to the public service cap because it's a direct cost. Jubilee Homes Quadrant Neighborhood-Based Stabilization, Onondaga Earth Corps Youth Conservation Corps, which is an economic opportunity kind of workforce training component. Volunteer Lawyers Project, a new program that they had submitted for legal services and estate planning for homeowners, which we all know is very important just based on conversations we're having regularly with the land bank. Blueprint 15, they're calling it the FAITH program for their advancing independence through home ownership. This is a new program for them, but basically they would be doing some coordination along with some of the Volunteer Lawyers Project specific targeted outreach for estate planning and doing referrals directly to Volunteer Lawyers Project to make sure that homeowners that are within the footprint have access to those services as kind of a means of anti-displacement and economic opportunity. And then last program is Liberty Resources, the DePalmer House. So this is actually a program that we are typically funding through ESG. It needed to move, we moved it to the CDBG budget this year because of the need to add some additional resources for the HMIS system, which is the system that's required by HUD that we have to submit reporting to. So we previously have not been paying for those services, but the Homeless and Housing Coalition has asked that we start to make a contribution to that, which we feel is reasonable, just based on the additional kind of support and technical assistance that they're providing. So
Which one was that?
the DePalmer House, so Liberty Resources. So it just moved over kind of from one budget to the other one. The one program that we did not fund, there was a third program that Jubilee Homes had submitted an application for, and we felt like just based on kind of overall need, understanding that in order to get this where we were at, that we just weren't able to accommodate that one within the CDBG budget this year.
That's the access to housing information.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that was a lot. Happy to speak to any questions or anything else folks would like me to kind of expand on.
Has our administrative fee always been 20%?
20% is the most that we are allowed to take from HUD, and we've generally tried to leverage that as much as we can.
So, Counselor, we use that to keep a lot of the salaries off of the general fund budget. So that is supporting the salaries of those of us that are involved with the grant as well as involved with the work. So some of the legal work that has to do with the housing, the accounting work that has to do with it. So it's all qualified costs, but it keeps us from leaning too heavy on the general fund budget.
Commissioner, I'm looking at this and I see where we can do a consolidation of services. I look at CNY Fair Housing, and it's very similar. Between housing rights, education, tenants' rights, but both the education.
So
we looked at merging some of these programs together to save money?
So great, and you're comparing the CNY Fair Housing to the Greater Syracuse Tenants Network, or is that the two that you're looking at?
Well, we have 2 lists for CNY Fair Housing.
So they're actually two different programs.
Okay.
Yeah. We do, to your point though, we do take a look at where we might have some overlap and encourage conversations between agencies when it's appropriate to. But the two different programs for CNY Fair Housing that are listed there, when it first showed up in the application, I had to read it twice because there's enough similarity between the language that by title it looks the same.
Yeah.
But they're actually different programs.
So to Marty's point, if CNY Fair Housing, housing rights, education, advocacy, and enforcement, and then you see tenant,
Yep.
it seems for some of us that are familiar with tenant network, you know, with what CNY Fair Housing is doing. This seem like
Yeah, so the one program
They-
oh, go.
no, it seemed like they are basically the same thing. Right? They do the
By
same
by
thing.
title, they do, which is why it's appropriate for us to have this conversation now, definitely. So, yeah, you want to explain the difference between?
Yeah, so the distinction between the two, so housing rights is really focused on the kind of tenant-based outreach, so kind of rights and responsibilities of tenants, so additionally kind of leveraging those types of outreach, education, things of that nature. The other program is specifically focused on fair housing related legal cases, so tenants that are having kind of fair housing, tenants that are having fair housing complaints for any kind of violation of housing discrimination regulations. It's more focused on kind of like the litigation aspect, investigation and litigation. So two separate distinct streams. CNY Fair Housing is the kind of designated fair housing agency within the community that does the latter scope of that work, and it is very much kind of a distinct lane that we feel like needs to be funded kind of on its own.
That's the first
Those are the two separate programs.
line item for fair housing advocacy, not advocacy, legal side of things.
Actual
right?
so it's the legal
then-
side of
and then-
things versus rights and
then the other thing
responsibilities.
is boots on the ground.
Correct.
Right? So when you look at, I guess from this standpoint, and that's why I wanted to bring up Marty's point. I guess from this standpoint, it's, if CNY Fair Housing is doing boots on the ground, tenant network is doing boots on the ground. When do we, as a city, say, okay, we can't be spreading resources too thin? When do we say, okay, we gotta consolidate and say, you know what, we gotta figure out if we are giving 50,000, split this 50,000 and not give 50,000 and 50,000.
So to that point, we have encouraged conversations between the two entities. They're focused right now in different areas, though. So you've got CNY Fair Housing that's really working with everything that is not senior, and Greater Syracuse Tenants Network that is working with the senior buildings. And that's really based off of feedback that we've had from residents on where they felt the strengths of either organization as well. So we've tried to take that into account. But to your point, we're continuing to encourage a healthy conversation.
Yeah, because you can't really blame the organization because they are pushing for their own interest. But as a city,
Sure,
we got to be in a position to say, you know what, resources are spread thin here, and we wish we could fill everybody's bucket, but you can't have too many buckets because we only have a room to be able to fill up to a half of a bucket here, you know, and just I don't know. I just feel like we're spreading this little resource too far, too thin.
It's I know you just had a birthday, and so perhaps you're a little wiser with that analogy than previously. So, but I do appreciate that where you're going with it. But what I will say is, as these agencies also approach the counselors, I think that's a very appropriate thing. Because, you know, with the money that's set aside within here, it's probably appropriate for them to hear that from you as well as they've heard it from us.
See, to Councilor Jacques' point, I mean, you got new people getting money here. I just don't understand the strategy, frankly. I mean, we have great working relationships with some of these groups here, and the key thing is to build housing. Yet we're spreading our money around and we're taking a chance on somebody, maybe a new program. I mean, I saw this Blueprint 15 thing, and I mean, this is just a small $30,000, but further advancing independence through home ownership, do they have a program for people to get, you know, buy homes? Is that the idea? Or is it like, you know, because I thought they're mostly involved with what's going to happen in the East Adams project. That's
Yeah,
going to be
it's
public housing, right?
Case management and referral services, so
To buy
targeted
homes?
base. So that's a component of it, but also ensuring that folks that may already have homes are getting connected with estate planning services. So I think in that particular case, the thinking there is that it's a very neighborhood, geographic focused outreach. We all know the importance of that project and that project getting done successfully, and we feel like having the additional kind of resources of people that are neighborhood residents who live in the community conducting that outreach adds a value on.
The home headquarters does that too, right?
Well, the home headquarters, so there's a difference between the home headquarters Ownership Opportunity Center, which is funded within the program, and the ability to have the existing relationships with the target population in an area where we've got a tremendous amount of resources being targeted. And that's what home headquarters doesn't have as strong as a group like Blueprint 15.
Well, they got
and so that's where the layering
They got a strong
comes in.
record of success with this.
I-
And we're
I-
doing it, and we're doing it. with this,
Absolutely.
Putting together a new program. I see and I noticed, now the administrative costs, I didn't hear Councilor Montos, but he mentioned that it's about, you're up to almost $1 million in administrative costs, and that's all to have people working on all these different.
Yeah, I would point out there's a little bit of a calculation error on between program year.
Calculation errors around the budget time are not allowed, Michelle.
There's some
gets us
programs that
nervous.
were funded in program year, this current program year 50, that did not apply for funds in program year 51. I removed them from here, which is why the total dollar amount is only $4.8482 million. And so the admin is calculating based off of that. So I can correct that if you want to see the extra lines in here. I was trying to keep it on one page and marginally legible for you all. But there is not a change in the anticipated administrative cost from one year to the next.
So it's still 966?
We are anticipating at this point, and as is always the case with the draft budget, that we're estimating it based on the exact amount that we received the prior year. It virtually never is exactly the amount that we received the prior year, and we always come back to the council at the point that we receive our official allocation, and then we'll just do, again, kind of an across the board. If we get bumped up 5%, then everyone across the board gets bumped up 5%. So.
And when will you know that?
We are hoping that it will be within the next couple of weeks. We did actually hear from our HUD contact at the end of last week.
So no chance that it will go down?
Oh, there is a chance that
yeah.
it will go down,
Absolutely.
yes. Yeah, there's certainly a chance that it would go down. So we never know each year, and it's sometimes a little bit unpredictable between the three programs. So like last year, Home and ESG both went down, and CDBG went up just a teeny tiny bit, like less than 1% for the total dollar amount, but it's pretty unpredictable kind of from year to year.
So did we have discussions around what Councilor Hogan just said? Funding something that is new and unproven and cutting things that we know there's a need for some of these things, right? So if I take, let me just spitball here. If I take Interfaith Works and look at that little 15% cut, we know that they brought 400 plus people here in December, right? That are receiving $200 a month in stipends that have been completely cut off. So we have new Americans in the city kind of
Yeah,
left hanging. So that little 15% cut may seem little if you look at it on paper, but I think in all of our districts, the impact of that money is great.
I would say that none of these programs that are newly added are unproven in any way, shape, or form. They're new to the CDBG budget, but Pieces Weatherization program has been going on for years. It's a very successful program. The funds that are being added here will kind of add specific capacity that right now is limiting the ability of those other dollars that are being leveraged to be successful to their fullest extent that they could be.
just think about
Onondaga
immediate-
Earth Corps, things like that, programs that, these are
Right.
programs that have been out doing the work for some time.
And I'm not anti-Earth Corps or
Yeah.
anti any of them as far as them being unproven generally, but I definitely think if we look at something like the tennis network that Councilor Majoke was just talking about, if it was not for the tennis network, I'm not sure I would get the communication that I get out of Parkside Commons, right? So that little $32,000, that $5,000 cut to me seems like, okay. I don't know. I do start to worry that we're getting away from the known problems right now in the city and just kind of diverting to other places. I do have concerns.
And that's why we're thrilled to have the meeting to be able to talk about it. This is a budget that 20 years ago was 3-4 times the size, and so we've always had that balance of qualified programs that have proven themselves applying. And what does that mean when, if you don't have similar amount of programs that drop out, which is why we don't just do this internally, as Michelle had talked about earlier. We do have the risk analysis committee that comes in and collectively has an understanding of what community need is and go from there. So the PEACE program, Michelle's point about these being longstanding programs, I was accessing the PEACE program when I was working as a property manager before I was running the Interfaith Works program in its current form 15 years ago, right? So what we know from the PEACE program is HUD won't cover the cost of upgrading knob and tube electrical wiring in a house, which is a requirement for the insulation to go in. And so we have residents that can't access this good programming because they don't have another way to pay for it. And so how do we say no to a program like that we know directly impacts people that we're also trying to reach through our SHARP program through home headquarters, our urgent care program through home headquarters. And so, yeah, it's a really, there's a lot of thought and reading and reflection that goes into what's the right decision here. And none of it is super clean. So what you're looking at right here is our best effort to balance all of these requests.
As far as the distressed properties funding amount, do we know what we actually used last year versus what we are proposing to accept for this year?
So yes, and this is one of those lines where there can be a little bit of flexibility from year to year on it. We don't have to draw that, as it's the municipality, we don't have to draw that all on exactly the same schedule. So what you'll find is, we've had to come to the council multiple times this year for bonding on demolitions. One of the ways that we are able to sometimes minimize the use of the demolition line that's in the general fund budget is if we're going to demo a property that we know is going to turn around and have affordable housing built on it, we're able to use that line sometimes. So we can take a look at it, but that line and the administrative line are able to work at a slightly different pace than what you see within the programmed budgets.
To Councilor Monto's comment, so we're cutting 15% of some of the programs.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely, I mean, he mentioned interfaith work, so that wouldn't be based on a performance.
Correct.
In any way, I think. So, but then why the difference? Some are 6, some are 7, some are 15.
So that goes back to kind of the limitations that we have with programs that are considered public services. So my printing did not work out very well here, but I did have these kind of more noticeably color-coded on the electronic version. So the vast majority of the actual agency programs that we're funding are subject to the 15% public services provision. So 15% was kind of the max amount that we could work with. I will note that the $100,000 that is currently remaining uncalculated right now, or unallocated, all of that could be added to any public service program without triggering an overage of the cap. So the 6% was just that we have more flexibility, again, because it's a housing program or because it's a program that is being carried out by an eligible CBDO that is not subject to those provisions. But to your point around performance, kind of none of these were situations where we had performance concerns or concerns about kind of community need or merit. And so that was the reason that we kind of took a hit across the board of trying to keep everyone at an even place with it. So to the extent that we can within the bounds of the HUD guidelines.
Would we legally be able to not take the administrative fee and bear the brunt of the administration on the city side and then fund everybody?
It would not allow us to change anything with regards to the public service overages, largely.
In other words, it would have to all go towards bricks and mortar type work. But it does mean that the local taxpayer now bears the cost that right now the federal government is covering for our own budget.
But we wouldn't have to necessarily go a full 20%. You could go slightly less.
Well, and that's what happened last year for the first time. I will say we ended up, if you look at our current budget right now, we've had to eliminate some housing positions with the cuts that happened in the admin for the current budget year and the admin, and what our cuts were to our budget in this past year. So it does.
Housing positions in NBD.
In NBD, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it did eliminate our ability to keep as many housing positions as we had funded, because we had some vacant ones that we just didn't have the money to turn around and fill between the cuts in both budgets.
And these are a lot of the positions that are kind of doing the direct interfacing with agencies, making sure that they're getting paid, that we're getting contracts executed, things like that. So it's very much directly tied to our ability to serve agencies and kind of provide that customer service.
So for instance, the emergency solutions grant, the admin on that doesn't even cover the one single position that is dedicated to that, much less the financing, the legal part of it. We use that, the CDBG budget has to help cover that position in the admin.
Where do we pay for the ambassadors through? Is that just general?
Yes.
Okay.
How many do we have again?
For community ambassadors, there's a total of 4 plus a lead staff agency. And I think the specifics of the work that they're doing is, and the reason that we've kind of kept that out of the CDBG budget, they're doing a much more case management intensive kind of coordination with staff. I think expectations of what goes into that from kind of what they're providing is higher than what we're looking for from the agencies that are doing kind of comparable work here, just in terms of reporting, case management, back and forth communication, things like that.
What's the food, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna, what's the footprint they're covering?
For the community ambassadors, citywide.
Oh, it's,
Yeah,
They are
each one is geographic.
Say that again?
Each one has a geographic region. Yeah.
And they are going through which organization again?
Center for Justice Innovation. So their main office is located on the west side, but they also have a downtown office location. And to Michael's point, they're for ambassador staff, there's somebody that's kind of designated north side, south side, east side, west side.
They are not city employees.
Correct. They are not city employees.
And that's actually been a significant part of what's helped make that program successful, is when people don't trust the government, then the government coming into knocking on their front doors saying, hey, no, you can trust me. You know, you need a credible messenger with you. And so they're able to work with residents that are struggling with housing conditions, talk them through what, as a trusted independent partner, look, here's really what the landlord can do and what they can't do. Here's really what the city can do and can't do, and hold their hand with them. And so we end up with a lot more engagement with residents that are in difficult housing conditions because of the fact that they are independent.
You think, so are they spending their time mostly on acute situation by acute situation, or are we actually debriefing them as to like what the bigger picture looks like?
We're actually debriefing them. Our team has calls with them a couple times a week.
Okay.
So there's one meeting that's just dedicated to case management, kind of triaging and kind of tenant situations that are, we need to kind of manage where it's at in the code enforcement process, work through the kind of he said, she said, they said aspects of it and identify kind of next steps. And then there's another meeting that's dedicated to just more like kind of global process, like take a step back and kind of how do we improve overall systems and coordination. So
Not
Kamon's team does quite
specifically,
a bit
but
of it.
overall, they're interfacing well with these organizations that
Yes,
we're funding?
yes, and it's a
Okay.
distinct kind of, so in the event that there's any kind of fair housing issues, they're making those referrals to those respective partners. If there's anything where Greater Syracuse Tenants is the best person to follow up, they're directly making those referrals and then still doing the follow-up with tenants. So again, kind of the, what's expected of them from a case management documentation standpoint, it's like weekly reporting and case note updates that they're providing us compared to a very surface level kind of monthly template of I served X many people and here's their income, kind of like just enough to kind of check the boxes for what is required for HUD for these programs that are on here. So
I would add, Jake had talked about in the code enforcement hearing, budget hearing, how the the book that's coming out that is designed specifically for how to do code enforcement across the United States in today's era, he's literally on the cover. One of the things that we get asked a lot from other municipalities is how to create a similar program to the Community Ambassador Program. It's that level of success that nationally.
It's in the book also.
Okay,
Yes.
that program isn't with CDBG.
Correct.
though.
Yes,
It's
Okay,
correct.
so
Yeah, we should come back,
I want
sorry.
to stick to this. Do we know of any of the programs that have been funded through CDBG that has had any impact through some of the administration cuts?
I mean, certainly from what has been kind of reported, we know what's been reported publicly in the news that interfaith with some of the resettlement work, that lane and kind of vertical of those dedicated staff have been affected. As far as their ability to administer the program of what was applied for through CDBG, we expect that can still continue and that they could still provide those services with the funding kind of as it is issued here. I think in terms of kind of, there's been obviously just so much speculation on the federal level of different types of funding streams, but we have not, I think I would say Interfaith is kind of the big one that we have heard has had a definite freeze.
Catholic Charities,
Catholic-
was their programming that was affected?
Through some of the resettlement related work, but not specific to, that exists completely independent of this program that they are applying for here. So
And CNY Fair Housing as well is, everything related to fair housing is really getting chopped up at the federal level. Fortunately, the state cares about fair housing, and so they've been successful in lawsuits as well. That's helped with their own ability to fund their work. So that's another agency that I think really critical that we pay attention to what their needs are.
Commissioner, what would a proposal of maybe consolidating some of this duplicate work look like? Because for me, I'm concerned, going back to my first point, I'm concerned about spreading resources that is so small, so thin that it doesn't even do any impact, because some of that end up in, overhead costs, and in which it doesn't even reach the people that it needs to reach, because it's spread so thin. What does that consolidation of those services? And I know what the word consolidation right now is a terrible word to use, based on where we are at the moment with a political climate. But what does that look like?
So I think the first thing that we look at is respecting the autonomy of the agencies that are applying. And you and I have a lot of experience on the other side, right? On the funded entity side. And so I think
worlds.
Yeah. And so I do think that there's, you had heard me say many times, you don't go chase the money, you chase the mission. And so you have to make sure that the funding that you are applying for and you're accepting does that. When it comes with strings such as, we need you to change who you are as an entity, we need you to do that, I think that that's a real, there needs to be some open, honest communication with that. That takes a long approach to look at. We've got two agencies in here that are looking at coming together already. They're not ready to talk about that publicly, so certainly can talk about that offline. We've got a couple others that we've been having that conversation with, but you need their boards to have the opportunity to consider what is best for their mission, and that is something that, so the conversations that we're having right now are conversations that we started last year, because it's not appropriate for us as a single funder, and for these programs here, we're not the single source, to say you must. we are far better partner when we say, we seriously want you to consider, because it may affect your funding the following year. So that's the best answer I can give you for it in the moment. Again, I'm happy to have some specific conversations with you offline, just not in a public setting.
And Commissioner, I'm asking that because I see people who are doing first home buyers program. You know, I came through that program, through
Yeah.
Home Headquarters.
Yeah.
That's how I got my first house, right? But I see that there are other organizations beside Home Headquarters that are trying to do the same thing.
So we are not funding the same work. So when you look at what is happening with Home Headquarters does an amazing job of making sure that a potential homeowner is well positioned for their for their first home
to actually buy and keep it.
and to keep it.
Yeah.
That's the perfect point right there, because what we know is that people that go through that program, regardless of income, default at a lower rate than the general population when there's an economic downturn. That's quality education right there. The programs that we're talking about here, no one else is looking to recreate that education. What they are looking to do is ensure that everyone has access to it. And that, to Michelle's point around the foreclosure prevention, or not foreclosure prevention, but the legal work to make sure that people have their wheels tied up for this. New York State, as we talk with our partners across the country, New York State laws around getting title work done once someone's passed in a family, it's a mountain where it's a molehill in other states, and that's due to the state constitution. And so you all end up having to consider having to seize someone's property that if they'd had access to good, affordable legal counsel or free legal counsel before the family member passed, that house would be passed down to the next generation. And so that's the type of work that we're feeling that is important for us to be able to do right now.
And I'm going to be quiet. So I see here housing, Home Headquarters, first home buyers program here. I see Blueprint 15 with their FATE program. What is the difference?
The Blueprint program is doing a lot more kind of targeted outreach to residents that are in that neighborhood, and they're doing referrals to other programs, making sure that residents in those neighborhoods are getting connected to the various agency resources that exist. So again, estate planning being a very significant component of what they were applying to do, kind of targeted outreach for residents in that footprint.
To do what?
To make sure that they get estate plans put in place for their homes.
Okay, and then I thought that's what Home Headquarters was doing.
No, Home Headquarters does not do estate plans.
It doesn't do recruiting, it doesn't do...
I think it's I would consider the Blueprint program to be a much more kind of targeted, they are a neighborhood-based program. So their reach is within the neighborhood that they're working in. It's a targeted outreach above and beyond. It's not that Home Headquarters doesn't do outreach, but also people know Home Headquarters. Their waiting lists get filled up very, 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 very quickly.
Well, we got the volunteer lawyers doing the same thing, right?
Right.
Estate planning, we're not. I mean, it's like a duplication.
Again, one of them is more kind of targeted, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. One of them is more specifically targeted to the outreach component of it and connecting people to services. The other one is physically kind of deploying the resources and executing on it. So we see value in both programs. I do totally kind of understand where everyone's coming from. It's there's a finite amount of dollars, a seemingly infinite amount of need, and any way you slice this, it leads to kind of some difficult determinations. But again, I think based on the committee feedback, what we've seen from, based on community need that's been expressed, all the different community meetings that we're at, the outreach that we did to kind of get to the point of the completed plan, we see value in each of these individual programs.
So that's a problem, because Home Headquarters has 4 lines. It's like a family tree. And we're going to give all this, you know what I'm saying? And then it's here, 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 here. Then you say, where can we consolidate? Where can we consolidate all together? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and so part of what I would say is, so for Home Headquarters is a good example right there of their 4 different programs, and then they've also got Syracuse Mountain Neighborhood Corporation. So they're very, very different programs. The Home Ownership Opportunity Center is very different than the urgent care program that's looking to make sure that somebody that's an existing homeowner is able to make a repair. I think another way to think about this, as we look at the fact that each counselor knows their district and knows that there are things within, knows the very intimate details of their district. We know from all of our community meetings that we have through everything that we've done for the Housing Strategies Corporation, that all the meetings that our neighborhood planners go to, and our constant evaluation of our data and the census data, homeownership around Lemoyne in that area has changed a lot as that population has aged. And so you see right in that area around Lemoyne a much older population. What does that mean for how those properties either stay in a family or get sold off and become rentals? Well, that looks really, really different than it does when we're over on State or Wood or Baker, where you have a much lower cost of entry into the market. A lot of homeowners that have been there for a very long time are worried about gentrification and being pushed out, while people that are reading the press across the country are saying Micron comes in and see the prices in that market and then in that neighborhood, and then also see the amount of investment that are in there. That's why we have to have very specific targeted needs. Blueprint 15 is trusted in that footprint in a way no other agency is trusted. They are also not known outside of that footprint, nor will they work outside of that footprint. But if they can connect to the good work that Home Headquarters is doing, or the good work that Legal Services is doing around buying your home, owning your home, or passing it on to the next generation, that takes layering of services in the way that you see within the budget. And so the consolidation is, this is something that we go back and forth with every year. We try to be very sensitive to the point, though, that different agencies come in with different skill sets that we need in different neighborhoods.
I think I'm so sensitive around the interfaith and the Catholic charities because these are probably the most uncertain fiscal times that we've ever seen in my age, so we don't know what they're going to cut, but I do know what they are hell-bent on doing right now, and that is snatching brown people that don't sound or look American and taking them to wherever they want to take them. So if we could figure out a way to cut somewhere in that administration and fully fund the people that are keeping those people safe.
Well, so I will say, if we're looking at not adding more expense to the local taxpayer or eliminating more of the services that we're able to provide, that $100,000 line that is unallocated would be the place to look to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, because that is, we've always had 50 in there. We've upped that to 100 this year. The other feedback that we try to be really responsive to was we had always maxed out agencies such as Interfaith that do not qualify for to be a community-based development organization, and so they've been in that small part of it. The budget right now was built so that if the council wishes, as Michelle had said earlier, all of that $100,000 could go towards agencies that provide those types of services.
And frankly, I think we have been very strongly advocating that agencies look to achieve the CBDO status, because if an agency meets the CBDO qualification, which is really largely a function of kind of what their board composition is, it changes kind of the dynamics. If they're an eligible organization, then we're able to provide additional funds kind of above and beyond that amount. But again, to Michael's point, we do have to be respectful of organizational autonomy. We can't dictate that somebody change their board composition for the purposes of these. So.
But what I'm asking is not forcing these organizations. You know, what they do with their mission is none of our business, right? None of our business. But what we do have control over is how we fund them, right? Whether we are buying into this mission or we are not, right? Or whether we have the capacity to do this. We have control over that. Right? They can continue their mission so long as that the resource that we have are not just getting thrown to things and then at the end of the year we look at the data and there's really no impact. But we gave them money just to appease them. That's where I'm coming from, right? But I don't.
No, that's asking
that we consolidate. When I say about suggesting consolidation. I'm not saying that they go and merge. That's not what I'm saying, because that's their prerogative. What I'm saying is, so long as this funding that the city channeled to them, we have ability to control that as to what is most impactful.
And you heard from the agency, so the idea of, oh, Counselor, I'm sorry.
I was going to
Go
say
ahead.
that you can answer this question, but we do have to get ready for a new meeting. I have one final question after you answer.
Oh, sure. So, Counselor, I would say you've heard from the agencies that come up during the public meetings that they do not feel that NBD appeases them when it comes to the budget, right? We base this off of the annual or the monthly reporting that we get, and we have the hard conversations with the agencies. And you've seen over the years that we've cut agencies that have not performed. So we believe that who we've got in the budget right now are agencies that are adding value to the city, and to the point of the admin part of it is the same there. Like, if it's hard for us to figure out exactly how to make this all fit in a way that there's not a way for it to all work, but there's a lot of effort that goes into making sure that it works as best as it can.
Thank you.
So just for clarity, the reduction is based on year 50?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Why is that?
So again, it was just kind of, there's new programs that were submitted, the feedback that we got from the review committee, we felt like the new program applications that we received, that they very much were meeting critical needs that we see in the community. We felt like they were kind of tested organizations. Again, to the point that we said before, it's not like these are brand new programs that we're kind of experimenting with the first time. They are new to CDBG, but not new programs to the community. We felt like they all had a value add, and if you have a flat total dollar amount anticipated for a budget, the only way to kind of add in additional is to take a buffer off. We did include, put our own distressed properties budget in kind of that higher tier of taking a higher hit out of it for the purposes of being able to kind of continue to distribute within some of the other housing programs. But I mean, I think it comes down to a matter of, as I said before, it's a difficult choice no matter how you slice it. You're choosing between needs that I think everyone here around this table would say are all significant needs that we have within the community, and so it's all about kind of finding that balance. So I will say, a couple months ago, back when the first news came out about the federal government potentially freezing all of our federal allocations, that was not a great morning in our household, but one of my immediate thoughts after that went down was, I'm really glad that I'm doing this job here in Syracuse and not in many other places in this country, because though I know we might not always agree exactly about the semantics of kind of how this gets sliced, I do not have any reason to doubt that all of you are not equally kind of in behind the mission and the great work that all of these agencies are doing. So thank you, and we appreciate the support of all the counselors.
We appreciate you guys for coming to answer our questions, and we'll probably see you at another meeting today as well, but thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, so motion to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.